and welcome mindsetters to this session of Learn Extra Live for exam school. I hope you mindsetters are ready for this session. You've got your pens, pads out, and your phones, so you can make sure that while you're making notes, you can talk to us and let us know what you guys are thinking, if you're lost anywhere, if you need help. Mindsetters, keep using the page. What you guys are doing is awesome. I'm seeing the activity, and it's so exciting, and I see you guys have been sharing, and obviously by now you've seen the new unlock stage, so make sure you get to sharing, but remember, share responsibly. Don't just keep on sharing and spamming people, because they will shut our page down, which is not something we want to happen, so we gotta keep on talking to you. So we can't talk to you if the page is down, so make sure that that does not happen. But mindsetters, I just want to say I'm excited about today's session because it's one of my favorite subjects. We're doing business studies today, so I hope you're ready for this. I've got Tanya in studio with me today who's going to be taking you through this, so I'm going to hand it straight over to her. Tanya, take it away.
Hi, I'd like to jump right into the November paper. Some questions have been covered, so we're going to go into question 2.4. Let's have a read and have a look. Question 2.4, there was a case study, and it goes with a dancer sent home. Johannesburg, a member of the South African hit show African Footprint, has been excluded from the cast after he disclosed the HIV positive status of another cast member. This information was passed on to management without his consent. Now let's have a look at the question. You'll see 2.4.1. Describe why it wasn't ethical for the cast member to reveal the HIV status of the other dancer. Now, important, when you're looking at these shorter questions, to look at the mark allocation. You will see that this one is for 6 marks. In other words, they want you to write 3 points. So it's going to be 3 times 2. Let's break the question down. So the first reason why this wasn't ethical would have been that people with HIV/AIDS have the right to not reveal their status. So people with HIV/AIDS have the right to not reveal their status. The second point, you'll see, it is people also have, it's also unethical to reveal the HIV/AIDS status of the other dancer without their consent. So the second reason why this was unethical, was because it was done without consent. And the third one, people with HIV/AIDS and their status, they are protected in the Bill of Rights. So number 3 here, we'll have that's protected in the Bill of Rights. And if you like, if you're unsure, you can always put a 4th point in, but it makes more sense to stick with 3. Your time limit is so short that if it's a 6-mark question, put your 3 points in, and if you've got time, you can always put the 4th point in. Let's go to the next part. It's question 2.4.2. And you'll see, analyze the impact of HIV/AIDS on South African businesses. Let's break it down. So 8 would be 4 times 2. So make sure that you have a minimum of 2 points for each of them. So the impact of business, the impact of HIV/AIDS on South African businesses, the first one you could mention would be high absenteeism. People not coming to work, obviously that will affect productivity, things like that. The second way it will impact business would be low staff morale. If there are people ill, it affects other workers. And obviously also if you're not feeling well, it will affect your productivity. A third point would be the consumer market shrinks. Now, with the consumer market shrinking, it means less people have a chance to buy. With people buying less, obviously your profits will go down. And the last point would be, just in general, and the biggest thing that affects South African businesses, would be lower productivity. And as I've said before, it's important. If this is an 8-mark question, you might need to make sure that you've got at least 4 points. And again, if you've got time, you can always go back and put a 5th point in, but I suggest try and keep to your time. Let's go to the next question that we've done. It's question 3.5. Again, remember, we're busy with the November paper of 2011. Question 3.5 looked at investments. And what I like to do with investments, I circle all the important information first, and then I break down the question. So read the question, and then read the case study, and then circle, and then you can go into answering the question. So let's start with circling. So read the scenario and answer the questions that follow. So investments, the best choice ever. Remember, grab your highlighter, pen, pencil, whatever you need. So Zinhle from Bishu won 500,000 Rand in the National Lottery on the 1st of December 2008. Then in January 2009, she bought 30,000 shares at 10 Rand each from Sasol Limited. In December 2010, she sold her shares at 15 Rand each. Then the remaining 200,000 Rand, because remember she won 500,000 Rand, was invested in invested in a commercial bank as a fixed deposit for 2 years at 15% simple interest per year, with effect from the 1st of January 2009. So as you'll see here, I've actually not done any answering of the question. I've just taken out the important information. If you like, after you've taken out the important information, you can write it down on a piece of paper so it's easy for you to access between that. Now, let's go into the question. So it asks us, analyze Zinhle's investment in terms of risk factor. So what we need to do first is see what investments are, or what investment she's dealing with. So we'll see the first part here. She won the 500,000 Rand from the lottery. Then she bought 30,000 shares. So that's the first type. She bought shares. And let's see what else she did with her money. She invested it in a fixed deposit account. Now the question asks us, analyze it in terms of risk. Now, shares are a medium to high risk investment, and a fixed deposit, which I'll show you now, fixed deposit would be a low risk investment. Now what I want you to remember is that the higher the risk, the higher the return. So with shares, they are a medium to high risk. In other words, your investment would come back at a higher, so the more you invest, the higher your risk, the higher your return. With a fixed deposit, it's low risk, so you won't get as high a return, but you also have less risk involved. And what I mean with risk is that if something happens in the market, you could lose all your money. So if you want to be more cautious, possibly a fixed deposit would make more sense. Now let's get to the interesting and fun part, the calculations. 3.5.2 asks you which investment earned a high return over the 2-year period. So which investment earned the higher return over the 2-year period? Substantiate your answer and note, show all your workings. This is very important. When you are doing this, you might lose marks if you've got the wrong answer, but if you did the calculation and it made sense, you could get method marks along the way. This question is quite a lengthy one, so let's break it down. If you remember the page we highlighted, all the important information. So we're going to do the first one, the investments with the shares. So the question asks, remember again, going back to it, which investment earned the highest return over the 2-year period? So with shares, initially she bought the 30,000 shares at 10 Rand each. If you look at the case study, remember, it's the 30,000 shares at 10 Rand each. And she did this in January 2009. So we can just put this here to remember, January 2009. So these shares would be 30,000 Rand times 10, and that will give you 300,000 Rand. Next, if you look back at this, you'll see in December 2010, she sold her shares at 15 Rand each. So it's going to be the 30,000 shares times what she sold it for. And this is going to give us 450,000 Rand. But at this stage, we haven't worked out much because we haven't seen how much she's got out of this deal. So what we need to do now is we have to take the 450,000 Rand minus the 300,000 Rand. And remember, this is what she paid for initially. And this is what she sold it for. So she made 150,000 Rand. But if you remember back to your investment notes, we haven't calculated the rate of return yet. So to get that, we need to use a little formula, which I'll show you now. You're going to take your return on investment. Let me just fix that. Your return on investment, and it's going to be income over your investment. Now remember, this income could be profit. It could also be interest. Basically anything where you're receiving money back after investing it. Times 100. So in this scenario, she got out 150,000 Rand, which we just calculated over here. So it's going to be the 150,000 Rand over the initial investment. And if we go back to the case study, you'll see the initial investment was 300,000 Rand. We got the 300,000 Rand from calculating the 30,000 times 10 Rand. So 150,000 over 300,000 times 100. Remember, we're trying to calculate a percentage here. Will give you 50%. So we now know that the rate of return for the shares was 50%. Next, we need to go and we need to look at the rate of return for the fixed deposit. So we're going to go through a similar process. First, we need to work out how much this person made. So for the fixed deposit, we're going to use a simple interest calculation, which most of you should know from maths lit, or any financial maths. And the formula is A equals P 1 plus I times N. And all we need to do is fill in the variables. So in this case, we know the principal amount, or the amount they initially invested, was 200,000 Rand. So we are going to take 200,000 Rand with 1 plus I. The rate, or the interest per year was 15%, and they tell us simple interest. Remember, this could be simple or compound interest. In this case, simple interest. So it's 15. So it will be 15 over 100 times N, which is the time period. And if you look at the case study, it tells us that it's been 2 years that it's been in the fixed deposit account. So times 2. And if you put this in your calculator, I'll do this with you. We'll go 200,000 bracket 1 plus 15 over 100 times 2, and it gives us 260,000 rand. So the answer here, 260,000 rand. Now, this can't be the final answer, and if you think about it, because they still put the initial money they put in was the 200,000 rand. So you have to take this 260,000 rand, which is the money the return they got, minus the 200,000 rand, which was the amount they invested, which will give us 60,000 rand. Let's go to a quick ad break, and when we come back, I'll do the rest of the calculation. Ty.
Alright, so mindsetters, make sure you don't disappear. Stick around, do yourself a favor, keep going on the page, keep chatting to me, letting me know what you guys are thinking. Guys, use this opportunity to get all those burning questions in before you actually now have them in front of you in the exam, because then you had your chance to ask them, but then you didn't. But you see. So, we'll see you after this break. And welcome back, mindsetters. Hope you had a nice little break there. Now you haven't disappeared too far. You're back, you're with us, you're focused, you're ready, and you've got your questions coming in on the page. So make sure you ask us what you're dying to find out. So we've got a session that we've got to continue. So I'm gonna hand it over to Tanya. Tanya, take it away.
Okay, back to question 3.5, where we're looking at the calculations for the investments. The last part we got up to was looking at the fixed deposit. Just to remind you, this was a simple interest calculation. Then we looked at how to get to working out the rate of return. So we took the 260,000 rand, which was the return, minus the which was the initial investment. Okay, I'm going to correct myself on this one. 260,000 rand, which is what they got back, and 200,000 rand, which was their initial contribution or the initial investment, and this gave us 60,000 rand. So 60,000 rand is what they got out of that investment. Now to do that same formula that I showed you earlier. So in this case, to get the fixed deposit, we're going to use the 60,000 rand, which was the profit that they made basically over their initial investment, which was 200,000 rand, times 100, which will give us 30%. Now I want you to think back to when we did the calculation for the shares. So 30% is what we got for our fixed deposit. And if we go back to our shares, 50%. So the question asked, which investment earned a higher return over the 2-year period? Substantiate your answer. So we've done the calculations. Now we just need to answer the question. So which one earned the higher rate of return? Well, in this case, the shares. What we've had in the break, a lot of you are asking about essays, so I want to pop through and look at essays for you. Essays are so, so important. If you get your essay right, you're halfway there. And another big tip, please don't spot. If you spot, it could just end in disaster, to be very honest. So essays, I'm going to look at your general format, which is very important, and then I want to look at the National Credit Act. So let's have a look at the format. Essays. Now, essays are done in very, very specific ways in business. Get this down, get a piece of paper, do what you need to do, make sure that you have this. If you don't know this, you lose marks if it's not done this way. So for a business essay, you always have to start with a heading. The heading won't necessarily give you any marks, but it's part of the format. So the format is 2 marks in the end. So no heading, you might lose a mark there. So the heading, first off, depending on what the essay is, so we're going to be looking at the National Credit Act a little bit later, and I'll show you an example of that. The next important part would be your introduction. Now, for your introduction, you always need 3 points. So these 3 points could be 3 definitions, or they could just be a general statement relating to the essay. This section, the introduction, will be worth 3 marks. So this will be 3 out of the total of 40. Next, we go into your body. And please remember, I know in other subjects you have to write in a paragraph, in business you have to write in point form. So for your body, you need to have subheadings, which I'll show you an example of a little bit later. Subheadings, and obviously the points. Your subheading, do yourself a favor, underline the subheading and whatever information you've got there. The body of an essay generally consists of 27 marks. A nice way to know how much to write, because I know this always stresses you guys out, is to go plus minus 14 points should be your essay body. So plus minus 14 points, this could include your subheadings as well. Remember, if they give you the subheading, they're obviously not going to give you a mark for it. So it's a nice way to calculate how much you need to write underneath each subheading. And again, when I do the National Credit Act, I'll show you a nice example of how to do this. After your body, you need to obviously go into your conclusion. And your conclusion will always be, again, 2 marks. So if it's 2 marks, you need to have 2 points. Again, this could be along the lines of bringing back a definition that you didn't use, perhaps, providing an opinion of sorts, or if they asked you a question, to answer the question in there. The conclusion is basically there to summarize it nicely. Very important, which I didn't mention to you in the introduction, please, 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 in the introduction, don't ever write in this essay, I plan to. They do not give you marks for this in business. You need to have the definition, you need to have the point. Now, let's have a look at the last part of an essay. It's called lasso. Lasso is worth 8 marks. These 8 marks will sometimes be the difference between a distinction or a pass, or one of those, so make sure you get this. So L is for your layout. So did you do the heading? Did you write in point form? Things like that. The next part is analysis. Analysis, did you answer the question? Do you understand what they're asking you? So if they're asking you about the basic conditions of employment, did you answer that, or did you go with labor relations? So it's making sure that, did you understand what you were doing there? The S is for synthesis. Now with synthesis, this looks at, again, are you engaging with the question? Are you doing what you need to be doing there? And the last one, originality, is this written in your own words? Did you show a bit of creativity? Things like that. So O is for originality. And you'll see next to each of these I've written 2. So lasso is worth 8 marks in total. When you do all of this, your essay will be out of 40, and hopefully you're getting at least 38 out of 40. Now, in your November 2011 exam, question 5 was on the National Credit Act. So question 5, question 5, November 2011. Let's have a look at that. Grab your highlighters, grab your pens. I want to show you how to break this question down, how to circle what's important. What most people get wrong in an exam, especially with essays, is that they don't read the essay properly. They think they've got an idea and they just go with it. I want to show you how to break an essay down and how to answer it systematically, looking at how many points to write, what are your subheadings, things like that. So let's go to question 5. Okay, just give me a moment here quickly. Can we jump to Ty quickly to have a look at a couple of questions, say something, and I'm just going to quickly get to question 5 for you.
Okay, so mindset is, do not forget, keep using the page and share responsibly. I cannot stress this enough. Make sure you're sharing the page with someone you think will really, really benefit from this, and someone you just think, hey, this might help you out in the future. So make sure, as I said before, all right, now you remember how this goes, right? So grade 12s tell the grade 11s to tell the grade 10s, to tell the grade 9s to join the page. Then grade 9s remind the grade 10s to tell the grade 11s to tell the grade 12s that we need to join the page. And tell them all to make sure that you keep on passing on the page, keep on telling people about the show, tell them how it's helping you guys out. And guys, do not forget, use the page. You can also hit us up at our help desk at learnextra.co.za. And don't be afraid, guys. Just keep on using the page. I'm seeing a lot of stuff. Monty, just want to say shout out to you. I'm seeing awesome stuff that you've been posting on the page. I'm seeing also Melissa, Dwight, who else is here? Kaylin, Luto. Yes, I'm sorry if I butcher names. I'm so horrible with this. Chelsea, I see you that you posted a question there. But yes, I think we're about ready to go. Are we good?
We are good. We're not going to do the National Credit Act now. We'll go into another essay, and I promise to jump back to the National Credit Act soon after the next break. So let's go to the next question, which was question 6, where we're looking at the forms. Question 6. Let's have a look at the question. I'll show you how to break this down. So question 6, you'll see the case study there was Northwest University becomes more socially responsible. Now with these case studies they give you beforehand, a lot of the time it's just to give you background information on what the question is about. I wouldn't stress too much about what's written here. But let's just have a look at what they're saying. The Northwest University, one of the leading universities in South Africa, is joining the Green Brigade in a bid to reduce its carbon footprint and become environmentally friendly. So at this stage, I think what I would think is slightly probably a little bit important. I would go with environmentally friendly. The university has undertaken the following. So all papers are recycled after it's been used. Some of the waste from the hostel is recycled. Electricity consumption, waste, etc. are monitored. The next point, new buildings with low electricity consumptions are erected. And basically the rest of this, if you read through it, it's all about environmental issues. Let's go down to the part that really interests us. So use the above scenario to describe the nature of human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues. Also evaluate the extent to which the Northwest University addressed each of them. So grab that highlighter. Let's break this question down. So use the above scenario, so we'll get back to that, so we can just keep that in mind, to describe the nature of human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues. If you think back to your textbook that you should have in front of you, this will be a whole section in your textbook. And the last part here, also evaluate the extent to which Northwest University addresses each of them. Now, we have highlighted the important bits. The next part we need to do is plan our essay. Planning our essay will make things so much easier. So let's get into the planning quickly. So in your planning, let's have a look at the heading. Now your heading in this case could be almost anything, guys, related to the topic. I would probably go with something along the lines of human rights, inclusivity. Fix that up quick. Inclusivity. Okay, that's a C. And environmental issues. With your heading, guys, make a point of underlining it so it's nice and easy for the marker to see what we are looking at, what we are doing. Also remember, when you're doing your question, make it very clear which question you're doing, because you only do 2 out of the 4 questions. So we've got the heading, that's a nice start. Now let's break the question down. So we've highlighted it. So now we know the first part here is looking at the nature of human rights, the second part, we'll be looking at the nature of inclusivity. And the third part to this would be environmental issues. Now let's quickly pop back to the case study or the question and see what they asked us. So use the above scenario to describe the nature of human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues. Also, evaluate the extent to which Northwest University addresses each of them. So evaluation becomes an important part here now. So for each of these, we now know we need to evaluate. What we've done now is basically set out the body of our essay. So this section here is the body. Now remember, the body is 27 marks. And I told you to remember to write plus minus 14 points for your body. So an easy, nice way of doing this is counting. So this is 1, 2, 3. 3 divided into 14. Plus looking at your evaluation, this is going to work out to be underneath each of your subheadings, you need to write plus minus 3 points. So 3 points underneath each of these. And this is a really nice way of learning or knowing how much to write, because a lot of time gets wasted if you write too much. And also remember, if you know one thing and you don't know anything about anything else, don't just write on that one thing, because you will be wasting time. Before I go into the conclusion and to the rest of this, let's go over to Ty.
Yes, so mindsetters, as I keep on saying, don't just randomly disappear. Make sure you come back, because we still have a session to do and trying to help you guys out. So keep on sending in those pages, those posts. Donovan, I see you. Ntando, I see you. Nolowazi, I see you. Ashlwin, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. Chantal, I see you. So make sure you stick around, because we'll be getting to your questions very soon. But for now, we'll see you after this break. And welcome back, mindsetters. Hope you had a nice little break there. Now you're back, you're refreshed. You went to get yourself something to drink, something, whatever you needed to do, so you can make sure that you guys are ready for the session. So, without further ado, by the way, keep on posting on the page, and just making sure that you remember that. But yes, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Tanya. Tanya, take it away.
Okay, before the break, we were looking at the essay and how to write it. There's a little bit of confusion between writing in paragraphs and writing in point form. Basically, with business, you can't really write in paragraph form. You need to write each point is an idea. So your body would be, let me show you an example on the board. So back to that essay we were looking at. What I mean with point form would be, so the first one that we looked at here would be the nature of human rights. Now this would be a subheading. So do yourself a favor, underline it. And remember, I told you need about 3 points underneath each of them. So make a point, and let's just quickly pop and have a look at the memo. I just want to show you. You'll see there's the introduction and human rights, the nature of human rights. So in point form is exactly what I've got here. So like I was showing on the previous page, nature of human rights, underline it, and let's go. So a point would be, you can make a dash. I like to make a little dot. So human rights refer to the basic rights to which all citizens are entitled to. Then your next point here, in South Africa, basic human rights are protected by the Bill of Human Rights as stipulated in the Constitution. And thirdly, it includes the right to be treated in a dignified manner, freedom of speech, privacy, etc. So I want you to forget about what's happening over here. So in the context of writing your essay, this would be your first point here. So the nature of human rights. You've written your 3 points. We've looked at those 3 points. And remember, I spoke about the evaluation. Again, 3 points for each. So underline, write evaluation, get your 3 points. And that would be the section. So just to have a quick look here, evaluation, employ more employees with disabilities. Second point, employ more employees from different cultural groups. And lastly, implement more skills development programs for their workers. So this would be the end of this part for your essay. Then let's go to that. If we look to the next part, remember I showed you or spoke about inclusivity, the nature of inclusivity. This would be your subheading. And again, you would have your 3 points. I hope this is helping you with the issue of paragraphs and point form. You're still theoretically writing the 3 points underneath each other, which makes it look like a paragraph, but you're writing in point form. It has to be in point form because it's easier to mark, and it's what they want when they're doing the marking at the end of the year. So obviously try and stick to what they want. If your teacher's shown you a different way, please don't try and change it now. Stick to what you know. For those of you who have been doing it in point form, remember to stick to this format. Very, very important. Now, what I want to do is quickly finish up what I was showing you on the previous page. Let's have a look. So before I did the jumping around, we were doing our planning. This is all part of our planning, remember? I just showed you what I meant with this part here, with the nature of human rights, evaluation, inclusivity, evaluation, etc. And then what you need to do, obviously after you've done your body, you need to do your conclusion. And remember, with your conclusion, it's 2 points, and there you go. And remember, doing all of this will bring you to the lasso mark, which is out of 8. I want to quickly go back to some of the shorter questions, and then we're going to go back to the National Credit Act for you. I know you guys are dying for it. We will be doing it. So let's go to the short questions again. I want to have a look at question 3.5. Question 3.5, oh, we finished 3.5, so let's go to the next one, which was 4. Sorry, no, we actually didn't finish 3.5. If you go to 3.5.3, the question was, recommend any 2 forms of investment to Zinhle besides the 2 mentioned in the scenario. So remember, just think back a little bit to where we were. Remember, we worked out whether it was better to get shares or whether it was better to go to the fixed deposit. Now, this question is asking you, recommend any 2 forms of investment to Zinhle besides the 2 mentioned in the scenario. In other words, please, grade 12s, remember, do not say anything about fixed deposits, and do not say anything about shares. You will not get any marks. So this is a big no-no. Now, what other types of investments can we mention to her or suggest to her? So we can tell her to look at unit trusts. Unit trusts are a very low, have a low risk factor. And another type of investment she can look at would be offshore investments. Offshore investments have a medium to high risk factor. Offshore investments, easiest way to remember it, offshore investments are affected by the overall performance of a country in which you invest your money. So if you're investing in the US, depending on what's happening in their economy, it will affect us. And let's just have a look. It asked for 4, so we know it's actually 2 times 2, but let's throw in a third one. A third type of investment she can look at would be debentures or stockfels. So let's go with debentures. Debentures have a medium risk factor. You don't need to know the risk factors here because they didn't ask you, but it's important for you to know perhaps for another question. So just keep these in mind. Debentures are, if you remember back, public companies which borrow money from investors and receive interest on these investments. So for question 3.5, we did quite a lot of work on this one, and I think we're done. Let's go to the next one. The next question I want to look at is question 4.4. And question 4.4, and remember we're looking at the November 2011 paper. Now read the scenario below and answer the questions that follow. So for this one, Mr and Mrs Pillay recently got married and are planning to buy a house in Verulam using a loan from the bank. Would you advise Mr and Mrs Pillay to take out a specific insurance for the mortgage bond? Give reasons for your advice. So in this question, what they're really looking for is they're asking you to look at, would insurance be a good idea? And then basically give a reason. In other words, substantiate your answer. Now, you could do this in one or two ways. You could either say, yes, you agree, or no, you disagree. But either way, you need to substantiate, and that's what that substantiation is about. So I want to break it down and show both to you. If you say yes, what the options are, and if you say no, what the options are. So let's start with the first one, yes. So for yes, yes. And in this question, you get 2 marks for saying yes. And why would it be, or why are you saying yes? Give a reason for your advice. Firstly, it's a good idea to take out specific insurance because service providers require collateral as surety. In other words, it's compulsory for mortgage bonds. So what you want your service providers require collateral as surety. Next part, or the next reason, could be that it provides indemnity. We're going to get into indemnity insurance, those kinds of things in a bit more detail. It provides indemnity to the Pillays for any losses due to fire or theft, all those short-term kind of things. And a third reason, and I'll tell you now why we've got 3, it is if you, so credit rating, so it improves the Pillay's credit rating if previous premiums on mortgage bonds are up to date. So let's just put in yeah. So it will improve their credit rating if their mortgage bond is up to date. If their bond is up to date. Now I want to show you why I wrote 3 points here. If you look at the question, it shows you that it's worth 8 marks. So 2 for saying yes. That leaves us with 6. In other words, 3 points. So you will get the remaining 6 marks over here. This was just the one side of the question. We said if you're saying yes, you think it would be a good idea. Now we're going to look at if you're saying no, it won't be such a good idea if they take out insurance. So let's look at if you're saying no. Remember 2 marks. And again, let's give them 3 reasons. So the first reason could be that insurance premiums can sometimes be very high. Let me quickly fix that up. So the insurance premiums might be high. So it's a lot of money being paid out towards something which they could have been investing in a different way and perhaps getting money back on that. Another reason could be that if they want to, let's just go back to the question. So would you advise Mr and Mrs Pillay to take out a specific insurance for their mortgage bond? Give reasons for your advice. So you could say that sometimes if you want to take out money or loan from the bank, that you need to have collateral, or need to seed something. So instead of having a mortgage bond, you could have other insurances that you could rather seed for or as collateral. And the last point here we can look at is simply the Pillays can rent then save enough money and rather just buy their house cash, which in the long run will save them a lot of money. So you can see that this 8-mark question, actually quite simple. Just look again at how the questions are broken down. I think I'm going to go over to Ty.
Right. Yes, mindset is. Woo. These sessions are coming fast and furious. Make sure you don't disappear, though. Keep on sending in those questions. Let me know what you guys think. If you lost any, if you need help, post. And yes, I'm seeing you guys are furiously posting, and I just want to say thumbs up to everybody for participating. And don't forget, keep sharing the page, but share responsibly. We don't want to shut down, remember. But for now, we'll see you after this break. And welcome back, Mindsetters. Hope you had a nice little break there. You went and did whatever you had to do. I know you probably wandered off for a little bit, but now you're back, you're focused, you have your pens, pads, and your phones with you. You know the 3 Ps. So you can make sure that you're writing notes while you talk to us on the page and let us know what you guys are thinking. Again, if you're lost and if you need help, make sure you get those questions in, because right now we're trying to cram all your burning questions in so we can make sure that you guys ace that exam for tomorrow. So keep on posting those questions, help yourselves out. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to Tanya. Tanya, take it away.
Okay, the last part we looked at essay. I quickly want to go back to one of our questions, or go to one of our questions on the 7 pillars of BEE. I'm going to have a quick look at that, and then we're going to get into that National Credit Act. So the 7 pillars of BEE. Okay, sorry, I just need to quickly get some space here. It'll give me a second. So the 7 pillars of BEE, depending on your textbook, you should have it in your textbook, but let's just quickly break it down. So the 7 pillars of broad-based black economic empowerment. So ignore this. There we go. So the seven pillars of BEE, or triple BEE of. Okay, the first one would be ownership. Now, ownership looks at basically, ownership is allocated a weighted ownership percentage, and it's calculated after excluding government ownership. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the 7, and then I'll briefly explain each as we go. So the first pillar is ownership. The second pillar of triple BEE, management. The third pillar is employment equity. Number 4, skills development. Number 5, we're looking at preferential procurement. And like I said, don't stress, we're going to look at them in a little bit more detail after I've done this. So preferential procurement. Number 6, it's enterprise development. And number 7, and the last one, as it gives itself away, the 7 pillars, would be corporate social investment. While I'm writing this down, please don't forget to go over CSI and CR, well, corporate social investment and corporate social responsibility. Both very important. As promised, let's quickly break these down and have a look at each of them. So the 7 pillars of triple BEE. So the first part here, ownership. With triple B ownership is allocated a weighted ownership percentage, and it's calculated after excluding government ownership and pension funds. So let's see if I can write this down really short for you. So it is allocated a weighted ownership. Okay, I'm going to go to plan B. I'm going to still keep the numbering for you guys, so just remember we're busy with number 1, the first pillar. So with the first pillar, I'm just explaining it now. So it's the allocated weighted ownership. With number 2, management, I think I'm just going to give you guys short keywords here. You can take it out and make more detail out of it yourself. It's allocated weighted ownership percentage. For number 2, management. So with management, grade 12s, senior executive and executive positions have a heavier weighting than non-executive positions. So senior executive positions are obviously they have a heavier weighting than lower. And this is basically to avoid, or this is trying to get people into executive positions and trying to push people up and get them where they need to be. Number 3, the employment equity. A nice little explanation for that one would be businesses are rated according to their black employer representation across all employer levels. So representation on senior level is given a high weighting. So with number 3, the rating is according to black employee representation. I'm going to abbreviate that to rep across all levels. Number 4, skills development. So skills development, it's basically, remember, there's a whole act looking at the Skills Development Act that looks at that. So weighting is allocated according to the amount spent as a percentage of the payroll. So the weighting is allocated as an amount spent as a percentage of the payroll. Number 5, I'm going to go through this quite quickly because I still want to get into your National Credit Act. Number 5, preferential procurement, and this is businesses are measured according to the ownership status of their suppliers. So for this one, the ownership status of suppliers. So who do they buy their raw materials from? Where is it also BE compliant? Things like that. Those are important. Number 6, enterprise development, and businesses are evaluated according to the investment or support which they provide to BE companies. So I'm just going to go here, support to BE companies. And the last one, number 7, we're looking at corporate social investment, and then businesses are rated according to how much funds they contribute to social investment. So businesses are rated according to how much they invest or contribute to social investment or social issues. Now, hope this covers the 7 pillars of Triple BEE. It's probably a good idea to go into a bit more detail yourself. This is a nice, quick, easy way to look at it. But like I said, go back and just go through it yourself. Know the 7, but get more information on it. Next, the National Credit Act. Everybody's been asking for it, so let's do it. Question 5, November 2011. Let's have a look. Okay, so let's break this down quickly like we did with the previous essay. Question 5. The National Credit Act was put into place to improve the way we, as consumers, have been using credit. With improvement comes change, and one of the important changes is that we need to recognize the importance of determining whether we can afford credit, adapted from the Financial Health magazine 2009. Now, the question, the part we are really concerned about or we care about. Discuss the purpose, advantages, and disadvantages of the National Credit Act to both businesses and to consumers. Next, explain the National Credit Act in terms of consumer rights and indicate what can be done when a customer's application for credit has been declined. Lots of things happening here. Let's break it down, and we'll also look at the answer to help you guys out if there's any short questions coming up. So the first part here, discuss the purpose, the advantages and disadvantages of the National Credit Act to both businesses as well as consumers. But we're not done yet. Go a little bit further. Explain the National Credit Act. So explain the National Credit Act in terms of consumer rights and indicate what can be done when a customer's application for credit is declined. Lots and lots of things happening here, lots of subheadings. I'd like to quickly show you a breakdown, and then we'll look at the actual answers in more detail. So for the essay purpose, in this case the essay heading would be the National, I'm just going to abbreviate here, Credit Act. And if you like, you can go into all detail. You could say Credit Act 34 of 2005, but that's not necessary. So you guys, your heading, remember your introduction. Now let's break this down. So the first part here, okay, well, let's do this. So it's your introduction. We'll look at the answers a little bit later. Then you're going to get into your body. Your body, in this case, guys, will have what is the purpose of the National Credit Act, subheading, and with this you could say, give or take, maybe plus minus 2 to 3 points. Next part, or your next subheading, I would make it for business providers, and if we look back at the question, remember the question tells us for business providers, so the advantages and disadvantages of the National Credit Act for businesses and consumers. So we're going to first do that first part. So for business providers, what are the advantages? And again, your plus minus 2 points, 2 to 3 points. Next, you're going to have another subheading looking at, so business providers, but the disadvantages, again 2 to 3. The next one, remember, if we look back, so we've done businesses, let's go to the consumers or clients. So for consumers, what are the advantages? And for consumers, what are the disadvantages? And the last subheading, yeah, guys, these are all still subheadings. I haven't actually gone into detail yet. Like I said, I'll get into that a little bit later. I shall show you guys how to break this down. And the last part of this is explain consumer rights. Explain consumer rights. So there's another subheading. So what are consumer rights? And lastly, sorry about that, I said lastly, the last one, this really is the last one, is what can you do as a consumer if you're, or as customers, what can be done when a customer's application for credit is declined. Your very last subheading. So what can be done? What can be done if credit is denied? So I've got all your subheadings here. After the break, which we're going to be taking shortly, I will go into detail there for you, or I'll go into more detail there. Ty.
All right, so exactly what Tanya said. We're going to take a short break. That doesn't mean now you just wander off and disappear and forget that we're having a complete session here. You need to still stick with us and stay on the page. Like, you guys have been having me busy, yo. Like, wow. Thank you so much for you guys participating. Keep on passing on the word. Keep letting people know about the page. Keep letting people know what Mindset is doing for you. But for now, we're going to take a quick break. See you soon. And welcome back, Mindsetters. Hope you're ready, you're back, you're focused. You know we've got this last segment to do. We've got so much to cram into it. So make sure you have your pens, pads out in your phones so you can make sure you can talk to me while you're making sure you're making notes, which is so important because if you don't make notes, you don't help yourself, because you won't help yourself going into that exam because you won't remember what you wrote. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. Just make notes, help yourselves out. Get on the page, talk to me, let me know what you guys are thinking. But we're going to continue with the session. So Tanya, take it away.
Okay, back to the National Credit Act. I want to look at the memo so I can give you guys some idea of the answers with advantages, disadvantages. Please don't forget what I did before the break, where I looked at breaking the questions down into the subheadings. Remember, the subheadings, doing this is also a good way of doing your planning before your essay. So let's have a quick look. So before we went to the break, remember we looked at the subheadings, which we did. Now let's look at those answers and go into a bit of detail. There was a question earlier on the site asking about the advantages. So as I go through this, please keep your eyes open and have a look. So your introduction, remember 3 points for your introduction, or 3 definitions, 3 facts, anything related to the National Credit Act. So introduction, you can underline it, give your 3 points. Remember those 3 points will be your 3 marks in the end. Now let's get to where it really matters, the purpose of the National Credit Act. So the National Credit Act, I'm going to go through this really, really quickly, protects consumers against unfair credit agreements. Example, charging exorbitant interest rates well above the maximum stipulated law. It also introduces a single function system of regulating what will apply to all credit activities. So all companies need to apply, or they need to do what the National Credit Act tells them to do. So all companies are the same. Another purpose of the National Credit Act is to make sure that consumers are treated equally. And let's do one last one. It encourages responsible borrowing. So it doesn't, what happened in the past before the National Credit Act was put into place, people would just go absolutely willy-nilly, taking out as much credits and loans and just getting themselves into a lot of debt, and it caused a lot of problems. Now, let's go down. We've finished with the purpose. Remember, one of the other subheadings I showed you was business service providers and their advantages. So, the advantages of the National Credit Act for businesses. Let's look at 3 of them. So, the first one there, more prudent buying. So, people will be more, well, they'll be careful when they buy because they know that they have certain limitations on how much they can pay back. Also, another advantage for the business is the whole credit process is transparent. So when you go into a contract with someone, you know exactly what interest you have to pay back, how much time you have, everything is clear. So for businesses, it makes it very easy for them to know if you're able to pay them back, what's happening with you, what's happening with them. And another important one, it lowers bad debts. For those of you doing accounting, bad debts, remember, something that the company can't get back. So it's money they will never get back. With the National Credit Act, it protects businesses from money having to be written off because they can't get it back. Let's go into the disadvantages of the National Credit Act for business providers. Again, let's look at 3. So there is a decrease in credit sales due to customer loss because people are less, because they can't get credit as easily. Chances are that they don't have enough cash, so their sales will go down with this. The next one, they may be restricted in getting generous overdraft facilities. So companies might battle to get more money in. And the last one, creditors may not pester consumers to agree to a credit agreement telephonically or through visits at home. So this is a disadvantage for businesses because they can no longer phone you up, harass you, email you, things like that. You need to apply for it, you need to go for it, and this is a disadvantage because they get less customers. I want to go to the next part here. Remember, we're looking at the 4th subheading, I think, would be consumers and the advantages of the National Credit Act. Let's just do 2 of these. So consumers or clients are protected against unfair credit practices. So in the past, companies could charge crazy percentage or interest on things that they've given to clients on credit. Now these things are protected. A second point here, customers or protected customers from receiving credit that they are not able to repay. So the National Credit Act makes sure that customers have the ability, their monthly income covers how much they need to repay for whatever credit they got. The disadvantages of the National Credit Act for consumers. Again, let's look at 2. The first one, consumers who are blacklisted can't access credit. So disadvantage, if you have been blacklisted, you can't get credit again until you've been cleared. A second disadvantage for consumers or clients, it may lead to a drop in the standard of living. What's meant with the drop in the standard of living, in the past they may have been able to buy extras and do extra things that they cannot necessarily afford and bought it on credit, and they no longer can do this. So there could be a drop in the standard of living. Another subheading quickly, consumer rights in terms of the Credit Act. I also just want to have a look at 2. They have the right to, so as a consumer, what are your rights? Remember, we look at quite a lot of rights in business studies. So consumer rights in terms of the Credit Act. So the first one, yeah, the right to apply for credit. So you have the right to apply for credit wherever you want to. Remember, just because you have the right to apply for credit doesn't necessarily mean you'll get the credit. A second point, yeah, protection against discrimination in respect of credits. They can't discriminate you against you. And let's just do a third one, yeah. Obtain reasons for credit being refused. So if you've applied for credit, they don't grant it to you, you're allowed to ask them, why was this not given to you? And the last subheading I want to look at, yeah, what can be done if a consumer's application for credit is declined? So what can you do if you've applied for credit and they are not giving it to you? The first reason, or first answer, yeah, a credit provider needs to provide you with a reason. So as it's part of your rights, remember you have the right to obtain information why you've been refused. First thing you need to do if you've been refused is to find out why you've been refused. Second thing, customers may request a written reason why they've been declined. And lastly, they can reapply for credit if they have been denied. Remember, this is a process. Just because you've reapplied doesn't necessarily mean you will get it. And the last part to this National Credit Act would be the conclusion. And let's just have a look here with the conclusion. 2 points, 2 marks. And please, whatever you do, do not forget that this also plays a part to make sure your layout is correct, analysis is evident, synthesis can be bred into, and lastly, originality. Remember, you don't do any of this. We look for this when we mark. Now, we had a question on the website asking about what's the difference between management, leadership, things like that. I quickly want to have a look at leadership. Different types of leadership, traditional leadership, new types of leadership, and just quickly break that down. So let's have a look. So, leadership. leadership and what types of leadership you can also get. So leadership has been broken down into traditional types of leadership. There are 3 types of traditional leadership. The first type, or number 1, would be autocratic or boss-centered leadership. Now, with this autocratic or boss-centered leadership, a characteristic would be that they have absolute authority over decisions, over how the company is run, over workers, things like that. The second type of traditional leadership would be participative leadership style. And within participative leadership, there's actually broken down in 3 more. I'll show you now. Okay, I made a little mistake there, so give me a second. So, like I was saying, there is participative leadership. And within participative leadership, they've broken it down into 3 more types. So let's break that down. So A would be a consultative leader. B, you have a consensus style leadership. Okay, consensus. And the last type, or C with this one, would be democratic. And just remember, these are all types of leaders. And just remember again, guys, A, B, and C are all part of number 2. Your third type of traditional leadership would be free reign leadership. Now, with free reign leadership, they also have a couple of other names for it. You should have heard of laissez-faire or subordinate style. I'll add that in there for you. So other ways that free reign leadership is sometimes written or referred to as could also be laissez-faire. Okay, and we've got a couple of minutes, so I can quickly go into a little bit of detail into each of these. So, with your autocratic or boss-centered, like I told you, they've got absolute authority, absolute power over decisions, what's happening, how it happens. With participative leadership, let's break each of these down. So with consultative leadership, this type of leader consults with a group before making a decision. So what they do is they consult with group, and then they make a decision. That's decision. With a consensus style, what they do is, a consensus style leader would encourage their group discussion, so they encourage discussion and make the decision after that. Sorry, let me fix that quickly. So they encourage discussion and then they will decide what they want to do or what decision to be made. A democratic leader, well, the formal thing, would be a democratic leader transfers final authority for decision making to the group. Then these leaders function as collectors of an opinion and take a vote. So a democratic leader, we can look at them collecting opinions and then taking a vote to what decision will be made. With the laissez-faire or free-rein leadership, it's quite a different thing. With laissez-faire, it's a French word that literally means let them do it. And this would give a good indication to what this type of leadership style is about. With laissez-faire or free-rein leadership, it's very casual, and all authority is transferred, or all authority is given to the group members. So in other words, this type of leader leaves all decisions, anything that needs to be done, up to the group, up to the workers, to make that decision for them. Now, this type of leadership works as a matter of interest really well if it's for research groups, things like that. And the last thing, these aren't traditional forms of leadership. These are new approaches. So let's have a quick look before we run out of time for the new types of leaders. And there are two basic types. The first type of new leadership would be a charismatic leader. And the second type would be a transformational leader. Okay, a good example of a charismatic leader would be Nelson Mandela. And the last one would be Desmond Tutu. Ty, you want to go for it?
Yes. Wow, it was such a jam-packed session. That was so much information. Mindsetters, I know some of you are frustrated out there. We didn't get to all your questions, but we tried our best. We have only an hour and a half to cover your entire year. So please bear with us. Mindsetters, there's also going to be notes on our website, so go check out our Learn Extra website and our Mindset website. And if you're desperately needing help, make sure you email our help desk at learnextra.co.za. Get those questions in and someone will attend to you. But please do not give up hope. Keep on working for the exams. And I just want to say to everybody, best of luck from me, Ty and Tanya. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.